Presented by AfterBuzz TV and hosted by Hall of Fame superstar Sean X-Pac Waltman, this is X-Pac 12360. And now your host, WWE Hall of Fame superstar Sean X-Pac Waltman.
Welcome, everybody, to X-Pac 12360. See what I did there? I changed up the words. I put everybody before. Anyways,
there we go.
Y'all know what I did. Don't make me explain it. Yeah. How was your weekend, everybody?
It was fun. It was long, which was really nice.
Did you go to Chicago?
I did not.
Yeah. Or no?
No, I didn't go. I couldn't afford it this time since I did the Las Vegas show. That was enough for me for a bit, you know.
And you know, it's something that I'm starting to think about is, okay, the more frequent all these big super weekends, like the more it's like, hey, I'm kind of tapped out financially.
Right, exactly.
I'm not talking about me, but I'm talking about people. Right. So
it is. Yeah. It's hard because they've been so continuously, you know, with I did WrestleMania weekend. I did, you know, Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. Yeah. And granted, like, I'm not a big spender, but, you know, hotel and getting there, flights, you name it, it starts to add up. And especially if you go all crazy during WrestleMania weekend and you go to everything. And then afterwards you're like, oh snap. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But I watched from home, though.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And I don't want to get all that because that's not what the show's about today. Mm. But, you know, just to acknowledge it was a big weekend.
Yeah, big one for sure.
Yeah, and I thought, you know, I didn't see all of AEW, but I did see some of the bigger moments, and I did watch just about all of the NXT UK Cardiff show, and it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't see New Japan. Anyone?
I missed it this week.
No, I heard that was a hell of a show.
Yeah, it's a good time.
I heard Dave Meltzer saying it. I thought it was like Meltzer and Alvarez or somebody.
Yeah. It's a good time to have all these weekends just filled with all of these shows, Embarrassment of Riches.
Yeah. Well, that being said, this show is going to be about looking backwards into the past. I figured we'd change things up a little bit around here. And steal from... Actually, not steal. I'm sure Conrad doesn't mind at all. Appropriating his pole-driven wrestling content.
Yeah, I dig that.
Episodes. Yeah. So we put out a little poll and, you know, just talking about different subjects. And Denise, why don't you just go ahead? I have a hard time spitting things out sometimes.
I guess let's just, really quick. So we did the poll, right? Yeah. And we just put like 4 different options. Like, hey, what do you want Sean to talk about on tomorrow's show? And people got really excited about it. We got like over 1,000 something votes that people sent in. Yeah.
Holy shit.
It was like over like 1,500, I think. So it was pretty cool.
Because at first I saw like 24 votes and I'm like, oh geez.
No, it builds up over time. And we only had it up for 6 hours, okay? Because, you know, I was like, okay, this needs to be a reasonable time enough to prepare, etc. So, but a lot of people were writing stuff down in the comments, even things that I was like, okay, I will include this for the next poll, which was pretty cool to kind of see what people, you know, wanted to know about, or, you know, that sort of thing, which was really awesome. But we basically, the winner was History with Razor Ramon, and somebody actually tweeted us something really funny. So on Twitter, you only get a certain amount of characters to post, like, so I couldn't really say like in depth like what each topic was. I had to cut it down. So somebody actually thought that History with Razor Ramon meant that Razor Ramon was going to teach history. Did you see that? Somebody tweeted me that, and I was like, oh man, that's hilarious.
Do you think they really thought that?
I don't know, but it made me laugh. I didn't expect to see it in the comments section. But either way, that's what we're going to talk about today. Cool. And I just think it's really cool, especially after you dive down and you just sort of like re-look at things now, and let's just kick it off.
Yeah, and so there are some things I've talked about quite a bit in the past, but you know, and some of those things I might not try to deep dive too much on.
Sure.
But, you know, we still should revisit them.
Yeah, we'll try to find some new angles, new perspectives, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, so, well, yeah.
All right.
And let me just say this is, you know, real quick, let me backpedal here for a second. I have to acknowledge the passing of one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, just an icon, and a huge part of a lot of our, you know, a lot of us were huge bodybuilding fans of the glory days of bodybuilding, like the Arnold era, you know. So Arnold's best friend and training partner, and also former Mr. Olympia Franco Colombo passed away. Yeah, there was an accident. He was in his like he's from Sardinia, Italy, and he was back home, and there was like a diving accident. He dove down and never came back up. And he was I think he was close to 80. You know, he's almost 80 years old, and just one of pound for pound one of the strongest men in the world. Period of his day.
Right.
You know, he could blow water, but you know, like, you ever see the old gimmick where you blow hot water bottles up, things like that, and just all the old strongman stuff he could do. And he was under, you know, he's like 5'6" or 5'7", and under 200 pounds. And there was, excuse me, the very first World's Strongest Man contest on NBC Wild World of Sports. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
You know, so Ken Patera was in it, Ivan Putski, Franco Colombo,
right.
I think Lou Ferrigno, quite a bit. Quite a few. Anyways, Franco, he got hurt pretty bad. He was carrying a refrigerator on his back. He was, and you know, the rest of the guys are like a foot taller than him and 150 pounds heavier.
Right.
So he kind of got hurt doing that, but not kind of. Anyways, and the friendship between Arnold and Franco, and the love they have for each other is another thing that really makes me want to do this today with Scott, because I feel that same kind of kinship with him and the rest of my friends, you know, Keven, Nash, Scott Hall, obviously.
Yeah.
Paul Levesque, Shawn Michaels. Yeah. So, yeah.
That'll be good. Yeah. I think
Rest in peace, Franco. Like, go watch. If you never watched Pumping Iron, I can't recommend it enough.
Right.
It was so great. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because of, you know, just their friendship, and then how it made me think of my friendships. So
absolutely, yeah.
Take it away, Denise.
All right, well, let's kick it off with May 16, 1993, The Kid versus Razor Ramon. You beat him after a moonsault, which was super fast. The crowd was absolutely shocked. I want to know, going into this match first, what were your thoughts going into this?
Well, there's more to it than just my thoughts going into it. I mean, we got to talk about like what led up to it.
Yeah.
You know, things like that.
Had you guys worked together before that night?
No.
You and Scott, no?
No. We barely knew each other. I mean, I knew him more than he knew. What the hell was that? Anyways, I just knew him from when I would see him around, because I was always whenever WWE house shows were in Minneapolis, I was always backstage and, you know, hanging out, just trying to put yourself in the right place at the right time and get seen and make sure, you know, everyone see me with my Ribera jacket on so they knew I was one of the boys.
Right.
Yeah. So I would see him there, and, you know, Kurt Hennig and like all the local Minneapolis guys were good to me, like Hawk and, and that. And so, yeah, and Scott had seen me on Global, you know, and he made sure he let me know that, you know, he was a fan of that stuff.
Sure.
Like, one of the things that stood out to him was we had a 20 count in Global.
Okay.
And so, like, when they were, you know, when the ref was counting me, and, like, you know, he's on like 3 or 4 or 5, I'm like, I got 15 more counts up, you know, what's the big hurry here? So I just, like, lay on the ground, act like I was smoking a cigarette or,
right.
You know, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Kind of making fun of it, right?
Sure.
Anyways, so he just liked things like that. And, you know, even though I didn't really know what I was doing, like, you could still look at somebody earlier in their career, and even though they make shitloads of mistakes, you can still see the brilliance in some people early on, you know?
Yeah.
And so Scott saw that in me, you know?
Yeah.
And Scott sees that, like, if there is that in someone, Scott's one that can find it in someone.
Did you know that at the time that he saw that in you, or did you find out afterwards?
There's, you know, I can't remember exactly. You know, I think. Anyway, so fast forward.
Yeah. So what were some of your first impressions of Scott when you guys were putting together?
Okay. So just to also, I had my tryout, and I had 2 days of tryouts, and like a lot of people know this story already, so I won't go too deep into it. I had 2 matches with Louis Spicolli, and you can find one of them on the Hidden Gems on the network. And I remembered the match being way better than it really was when I watched it back, but still, I recommend people go watch it and see what got me hired. Right. It was a pretty rough friend yet, just looking back, but I got people saw what I could, Vince saw what I could do. People, anyways, whatever. So I was waiting for a call because I already had all these other things going on. Like I was promoting my own show, this NWA show with Hawk and Terry Funk in the main event, and I worked with Sabu. It was my first match with Sabu, kind of put us on the map with a lot of people. Jerry Lynn wrestled Candido. Taz wrestled Brad Rangans. Masa Saito and Nails wrestled. Anyways, no, Masa Saito. Whatever. Nails and the Hater against Masa Saito and Charlie Norris. I'm getting off into the weeds too much here. What I'm trying to get at is I had a lot going on. And I also had a New Japan tour for a Super Junior tournament. So I kind of had options, right? But I never thought I would get hired by WWE. I never thought they would even consider me. So, I had to try out, and I'm at home waiting. It seemed like forever till they call, and then one day I pick up the phone and it's Vince, and he runs this whole Razor Ramon story, by me, and Pat Patterson's on the line with him, and they're laying the whole thing out exactly how it happened, and and I even mentioned, well, I got this Japan tour, and they're like, okay, then and then we'll have Scott
doing the promos and stuff.
Challenging me to rematch, and putting your money up, and then eventually it's too much money for me to pass up.
Sure.
And, whatever, but I had these little promos I cut. Oh, I'm jumping too far ahead. So we're okay. So we get there, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, Vince asked me what I think of it. Obviously, I'm like blown away by the whole thing, right? Because everyone else, when they come into WWE, they just get 3 weeks of vignettes and some squash matches, and here, get over. So. It was so much greater the way I was brought in.
Right. It's enough of a surprise just that you're getting the call, much less that, they're putting you over one of the top guys right off the bat.
Yeah. And by design, this wasn't just to introduce me. It was actually mainly to turn the Razor Ramon character babyface.
That was actually going to be one of my questions later on. I didn't know if they had already planned that since then.
That's what this was all about.
Or if it was just kind of like all fell into place. All right, well, there you go.
That's what this was all about. So just in case I ended up, flopping or shit in the bed or whatever, they could still use this for the storyline with Dibiase, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so anyways, I fly in and I'm there, and actually I had a couple of weeks. They, Vince had told me, we're gonna bring you in, and we're gonna squash you the first couple of weeks. So I can't remember which order I had. Curtis Hughes squashed me 1 week, and Doink, Matt Bourne, and you can tell they didn't know what was planned for me, so they treated me like a job guy. And so I felt it was like,
Right.
Doink was your debut, Sean. I'm looking at it. Yeah, May 3 was when you debuted, and you lost to Doink that day. So.
Yeah.
So do you think that might have made it seem more authentic to people?
Of course it did.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, so Vince didn't realize people, Vince is in the little bubble that he's in, and he's busy as hell. It's not like he's watching everything or got his pulse on the finger of all the independent wrestling fans or whatever. But he seemed rather surprised when I came out for that first match and the people started chanting my name. But yeah, so yeah, we had those couple weeks of squashes, and so I get there this week, and I'm waiting, and then here comes Scott, and he's just really haggard looking, and you know, so is everyone else. And, you know, it's like, comes up to me, you got any ideas? Or like, and I was like, I had a million ideas of what I wanted to do. So Scott's just like, calm down. You know, they just got off a red eye from out here on the West Coast, and you know, everyone was really tired. They'd been on the road. And so I'm much more enthusiastic about everything than Scott is. And Scott goes up to Pat and goes, "Hey, what should we do here?" He goes, Pat just said, think of one thing. Just miss something. Think of one thing. He beat you. They beat the shit out of the rest of the match. And that's what happened. And that was the right way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was what made the actual victory more shocking. And, you know, so that was how that went.
What were your emotions like prior, during the match, and even afterwards? Because even afterwards, the way you celebrated, like, it just went perfectly in line with everything, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I wish I would have taken more time. But it was still, you know, I was nervous and not, you know. I still had a lot I still do today have a lot to learn. But at the time, boy, did I ever. So I think I rushed that celebration too much and ran out of the building.
Oh, I see.
I could have milked that a little bit more. Like, and you know, me today would have like milked the shit out of it. Trust me. So
right.
No, but you know, I mean, it was the authentic. I was through the moon. You know, it was, and I knew at the time it was the biggest moment. You know, at that point, like, without a doubt. Like,
sure.
And in my entire career, and it was, even to this day, that was the biggest moment of my career. That was the most important moment of my entire career, was that match.
Did you expect that crowd reaction afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, I expected everything. We expect everything to, you know, play out just like it did.
Because it's like you said, that it was all kind of engineered to sort of culminate at that moment.
Yeah, that was like, none of that happened on accident. That was all planned.
And then I was watching your promo, the one where you said, like, okay, so, you know, Razor Ramon's offering this money. I think first he started was like $7,500, eventually goes up to $10,000. But there's the promo that you did where you're saying, like, I was at home watching Raw with my grandma and my grandpa. And then you started saying,
with
like,
my Minnesota accent.
Yeah.
Thick Minnesota accent.
Was that your first national TV promo?
Yes.
That was the very first one. Oh, man, were you nervous?
Yeah. Oh, of course. You know, I mean, I've talked about this recently. Like, I was scared of talking in public, you know, and that means, you know, like, you know, I've gotten obviously better at it. I'm doing this right now.
Sure.
And, you know, I kind of make a living talking in public now. But, yeah, and the thing is, when you're 19, 20 years old, and you're new, not just in wrestling, but in life, you don't really have that much to talk about,
right?
As far as shit you've done, you know. So that was how they wanted. I was really not happy with the promos because I wanted them to be slick, smooth.
Of course,
you know. I wanted to, you know, cut a hell of a promo, but that was exactly what was needed.
Yeah, because they had positioned that character to be so relatable, and you know, that
nervous little kid, you know, just, and I was overwhelmed by everything, and you could tell. I was just so incredibly like excited about everything.
So did they prep you before that, or was it just kind of like do your thing, go out there, or did they give you like pointers, like what you were supposed to get across?
Yeah, so after the big win the next day. And I was just talking with Sergeant Slaughter about this because, Sarge was a big part of all this because he was the one that actually called me for my tryout and like, hey, you know. But so Sarge took me to the studios in Stamford the next day, and I cut all those promos. Sarge produced all of them.
Okay.
He did an awesome job because, I mean, they were like you said, they were exactly what was needed at the time, and. You know, he directed me perfectly, and so after those were done, he was like, "Hey, so where are you staying?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Where am I staying? Like, I don't know." So he brought me home. He brought me to his house. I stayed at his house. We had a great time. Cooked out. Yeah, I love Sarge. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
That's crazy because, like, I'm sure when you're, like, new, you never know who's going to take you in, that sort of thing, and you're kind of maybe hoping someone does, and then he did.
Yeah. And so the guys like that, even more so than the guys like a little younger than Sarge, like Scott's age, and that really liked me because I knew my history. I knew all wrestling history, and like I could talk to them about the things that they did, and talk to them about, you know, even the people that were heroes to them, you know, and just the history of wrestling, and so that served me well, you know, when it come to having relationships with the older generation of guys.
Yeah, just having that foundation of knowledge to kind of absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and then you had your rematch on June 20th, 1993, which was just a couple weeks after the first match. So with this one here, one of the things...
I'm pretty sure it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks? There you go.
I mean, no, you tell me.
So, May 16th to June 20th. We have a couple weeks in between there.
Okay.
I'm so bad at math. All right, but...
Because that was when I went to Japan for the New Japan Super Junior tournament.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
That was when I was in Japan, because we were still, like, figuring out names. You know, Kamikaze Kid, Cannonball Kid,
Lightning
Dick Kid, this kid, that kid,
right.
Hard Luck Kid. So I'm in Japan, and I get on the bus, and I forget who it was. I was reading Japanese magazine, and goes, "Oh, you 1, 2, 3 Kid." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, your name 1, 2, 3 Kid." I said, "Bullshit. That fucking name sucks." Oh, I hated it. You guys know, right? I hate the name. Oh yeah, so. Yeah, I let that bother me.
Did it grow on you after a while?
Never.
No.
It didn't grow on until many years after I was done with it.
Right.
Yeah. So when you're like out and about, like you know, or even just like meeting people, or like say you're trying to pick up women, or not that I should have been picking up women as a married man or anything, but just saying.
Sure.
You know, someone goes, so what's your wrestling name? And that's when you go, oh, fuck. 1, 2, 3 Kid. You know?
That's true, because there is always
then they're
that
like,
moment.
well, what does that mean? Fuck.
Well, when you went into this match, already there were so many 1, 2, 3 Kids signs.
Yeah.
You were already over with the crowd, you know, so that must have been fun going.
I didn't even have music when I came out, and the big old pop when I came out. It was great.
Forgot to mention earlier your Lucky Raw t-shirt, too, that you talked about in your promo.
Yeah. No such thing.
So, essentially, when you came out to this match, when you came out for your rematch, already the crowd thought, is he going to get one over, like, really fast? And you did, you know, you went out there and you did these moves that, you know, everybody was just...
We got some quick near falls right away, and people were like, oh, you know.
Right.
People were freaking
we had
out
them
about
right away.
them.
We had them.
Who laid out this match?
We did, Scott and I.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, obviously mainly Scott, but I had to say so. Like, I knew, you know, I had a clue.
Sure.
I had a clue already. I just, you know, I needed someone with the real knowledge to kind of put things into place properly and when to do things. And
when you're talking about, because I know you mentioned in the first match you had all these ideas, all the stuff you wanted to do. Was there anything that you particularly wanted to, like, okay, like if I get anything in, I want to get this in?
No, just my normal shit.
Sure.
And I did. And yeah, but that was a rough one, that match. You know, so not a couple months ago, I actually flew to, you know this, right? Flew to New York and did a short documentary about just that match.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned this. You mentioned a story about when you slipped during this match.
Yeah. Well, that was only the second time I got knocked out in this match.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the first time was on the choke slam.
Ooh.
You saw it?
Yeah, well, I didn't notice that, like, right off the bat,
Yeah,
though.
we do it, like, go for the back, go for the, I'm pretty sure it was go for the hip toss, I block, I do the back flip, and when I land, he goozled me, and it was like anyways, right on my head. It was just mistiming.
And that's one of those things I didn't realize until I had
started.
started.
And the ring was so hard. If you go back and look at that bump in the ring, you see the actual ring doesn't move at all.
Well, yeah, and that's one of those things that I didn't start realizing until fairly recently, going back and watching those matches, is like when he hits that choke slam, it is high and tight.
Yep.
Like,
yeah,
that is a rough one.
See, because I'm just guessing that I was thinking like high extended choke slam, and Scott has a different version of it.
Sure. Right.
So we weren't on the same page.
Right. His is obviously different from like the Taker choke slam or anything.
Yeah. So, man, I got a frog in my throat tonight or this morning.
One of the things that I also liked during this match is how commentary really put over the fact, like, kid, this isn't worth it. The $10,000 isn't worth it. Yeah. And like you watch it back and you just think like, oh man, like it really puts you in that position where it's like this kid here, you know, all you had to do essentially was come out for this match. Yeah. So then like with the whole part with you running out afterwards with the $10,000, tell us about the ideas for that.
Okay, so the plan was, you know, the part where I go to the top rope. Okay, so what happens is, you know, I spill to the floor. Scott comes out. He takes the padding on the floor and he pulls the padding back. And he's going to give me the razor's edge on the concrete. Mm-hmm. And I backdrop him out of the razor's edge. And so this is the part that, okay, so Scott's like, oh, it was my fault. And well, not really. It's just... I'm the one that did the slipping and that, but Scott had this idea in his head that, okay, kid just got back from Japan and, you know, because everyone rushes everything when they're my age, right? And I'm taking my time selling and I'm going to get up there and then Scott's getting up way quicker than I thought he was because he wants to be there for me, right? And I'm trying to hurry up because I don't want him to stand there like, it's one of my pet peeves. And
just
it happened
standing there looking at
it happened
you.
This weekend too.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, so I slipped and I ate shit. And it fucked me up bad. I mean, I can't tell you like because I didn't go to the hospital even though I should have. I can't tell you exactly what the injuries were, but there was some major head trauma. Oof. Really bad, and I couldn't walk for all the way up until I got on the plane to go to my first set of house shows. And somehow, like, once I got out to the ring, you know, you kind of manage the adrenaline. But, like, there was major deep bruising in my thighs and just everything was messed up. And so, what was supposed to happen is, so I do like a rolling... whatever. It's not a typical hero because it was up the top rope.
Right.
So I'm supposed to, hit him. Boom, down he goes. And that's when I'm supposed to grab the money and haul ass out the door. So, but when I slip and fall, it's like, oh shit, now what, right?
Right, yeah.
So when I did that, and Scott's like, oh, now what? And Scott looked over because at the time the ring the announcers. The table was pushed up to the ring. Mm-hmm. And so Scott looked over for some kind of direction from Vince.
Right.
And Vince just put his head down like this. Like, you're on your own and we're live and this needs to get done like before we go off air, right? Like, so Scott just, rolls me back in and is like, if I beat him, like, he's fucked. That's his thought. So he's like, Scott was going to let me beat him again.
Oh, wow.
And so he was just trying to think of something like schoolboy, like fucking, small package.
Exactly, yeah.
And I went, moonsault. Somehow I spit out moonsault. And he goes, just like before? And I'm like, And it was the best moonsault I ever did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I was out of it. I suck at moonsaults. So, I've talked about that before, so I won't deep dive into my sucking at moonsaults. Yeah. So when I hit him with it, he was gonna let me pin him again. Yeah. And as Earl Hebner is down to the count, he's going kick out 1, 2, and then so Scott kicks out, and then it's like, what the fuck now, right?
Right.
And they are both going, get the money, get the money. So I grabbed the money and and there's 10,000 in there too, by the way. I don't know why they thought they should put 10,000, but they did.
Right.
And so I'm carrying the money back, and and I'm still fucking out of it, just out of my feet. And I go through, I'm going through the curtain. I don't know if I heard some people like warning me or whatever. And Scott was about ready to take my head off. He would have had to.
Yeah.
And somehow I fucking put it into overdrive just as he takes a swipe and out I go and he misses me. And, you know, everything turned out. And that was, if we didn't figure that out, I mean, who knows what would have happened in my career.
Yeah.
Or a push or whatever, right? Like,
so everything after that dive off the top was all just completely...
Yeah, man.
Wow.
And it was like, there was a lot at stake. There was a lot at stake.
Sure.
And we got it done. Yeah.
But I think in the end it sort of worked out because it's like, oh, like he's sneaky. He just left with the money, and then Razor never got his win over.
I was gonna say, the way that you're describing that finish, I was like, fuck, you couldn't plan something better than that.
So.
Real quick, Sean, I got a question.
Please.
I can't show it because we'll get flagged, but I'm watching this back right now. When you sneak off and grab that money, you're obviously kind of woozy from the match.
I'm out of it. Yeah.
So that wasn't acting. That was because, dude, because this choke slam and this, it's brutal, man. I can't believe you bounced back. For those of you guys who are listening, you should definitely go back and watch this. I can't show it, but it's amazing footage.
And the even crazier thing about this is that was my first of 2 matches that night.
Oh, shit.
They sent me back out for another fucking match. Because it was so important. I had that fucking enhancement match with Reno fucking Riggins.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I got Tony Gurria, and I love Tony, but that was their job at the time to get you to go out and do shows. It's your fucking call. Yeah. If you fucking tell a wrestler that's fucking like head is half cut off, it's your call, they're going to go out and fucking do it. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right.
That was insane, looking back on it.
How did that go, the second match?
I managed. Mm-hmm. I managed. Like, if you know the situation, you could tell by looking.
You're kind of out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Just ridiculous that I was sent out for that fucking match.
How much time went in between that? You didn't even have like a moment to like sit and relax or something?
Like an hour or something. I don't know. Maybe less.
Right. Not very much.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man. Okay, so then, one of the things I also wanted to ask you is that Razor Ramon, one of the things he kept calling you all the time was Stickman. Stickman.
Yeah.
Was there any story behind that or just what he thought visually?
No, it was just like, that was Scott, you know, he would take something and he would stick with it. Right.
Well, a lot of, if you look at those promos, he's still like, it's still very much supposed to be the Tony Montana kind of character at that point. So like, he's still, like.
And he never changed, even when he was a babyface. His interview style never changed.
Right. Because I noticed, in that first one where originally it's 2500, he's throwing a lot more Spanish in there.
Yeah.
Then, later on it would kind of evolve. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so after this, you started getting built up and you started defeating other people that sort of came into your position as more like, like the jobber positions, and then you started getting more established. And then flash forward to August of 93, you defeated Ted Dibiase, and I thought this was cool because Ted Dibiase was sort of mocking Razor Ramon, kind of like, you couldn't win this kid, and then all of a sudden you get him and you get the pin, and it worked out pretty cool. Tell us a little bit about that whole match and how all that worked out, and was that the idea, the whole time?
Yeah. Well, that was part of the master plan, and Teddy was on his way out. Mm-hmm. He was finishing up, and he was going to be finishing up at SummerSlam, and it was it was. Excuse me. I had the match with Ted, and so we did this finish that. And I'm pretty sure Ted actually went up to Terry Taylor and asked him, like, hey, what should I do with him? Get him over. And so we did the finish I was doing with Terry on the road where, I would get, I would do my stuff. And, then boom, pull the rug out from underneath me. And there I am, I'm down. And I think Teddy got me in a $1 Million Dream and out I was. And then he laid over nonchalantly with his back, right? 1, 2, and I crucifixed him. 1, 2, 3, real quick. And it worked great. It was perfect. Perfect finish for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was Terry Taylor's finish.
from here on, then you would say that you became more of an established character, even like after this was, you were seen constantly, and then you began teaming with Razor Ramon on and off. And then I want to kind of fast forward to when you kind of started showing these like heel tactics. So let's fast forward over to 95 where you guys
real quick, I want to talk about Survivor Series. Because that was a big deal for me. Like, I had to team with Scott. And that was when they, I think that was when they started thinking about Marty Jannetty and I as a team. But the main thing was like I was teaming with Scott, and on our Survivor Series team we had Macho Man Randy Savage. So yeah, I just had to throw that in there.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
It was supposed to be Kurt Hennig. It was supposed to be Kurt Hennig, but it ended up. Vince likes to do, if you're going to replace somebody, make sure they're of equal or greater value.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, it was so cool.
So what was it? It was you guys, Macho Man. Was there anyone? Was there another person on the team?
Me. It was me, Scott, Mach, and Marty.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Marty and I won it. But anyways, so yeah.
And that kind of, is that what transitioned into you guys being a team?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so I just really felt the need to fit that in there because that was a big moment.
Sure.
That Scott and I were part of.
So, okay, so what I was talking about was when you guys finally got your title shot against the Smoking Guns in your house for 1995, the Great White North. And this one was interesting, too, because the finish, you guys had a chance.
Yes.
Had Razor taken that pin, you guys would have won the titles, but then you wanted your moment, so he gave it to you. But, you guys are teams. Gives it to you, doesn't go well. You lose, and then you start throwing a fit, and you attack them afterwards.
Yeah.
So
it was a good match too.
Yeah, and we had already started seeing some heel tactics of you, like even in that match where you pulled down the rope so that he can fall backwards and that sort of thing. So what was that transition like for you?
That was what I was. I'd always been a heel pretty much for most of my career.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I was a pretty good heel actually before I got to WWE. Anyways, the thing I remember about that is Scott and I we were just on the same page. Like we didn't even talk to each other about this, but we showed up even at the airport, both wearing like the same, like we both had our Stu Hart 80th anniversary or 80th birthday jackets on. They're like, that's a whole different story, those jackets. But, and we got there, and when we go to get our gear on, our gear was matching, and we didn't even coordinate it.
I thought you guys coordinated that.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was just, we were such a good team. And, we had some cool moves, like he did the sack of shit, and then he would catch me in the sack of shit and throw it on them for a near fall.
I've never heard anyone call the following slam that.
That's whatever. That's what Scott's name for it is. But even so, we both, and we didn't call this either. It was just natural. We just did this. We both stuck our hands out to shake their hands. And when they put their hands out, we went, woo, both of us at the same time. Oh, they were like, oh, you fuckers.
So at this point, were you guys like close, in real life?
Oh, yeah.
At that point already?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like, let's just say like not knowing anything about you guys and just seeing you guys, like you would never think that you guys, had anything in common, but it played so nicely though with you guys being a team. But had you guys just paired you guys up like separately or something, like you would have never thought it though,
Yeah.
So it kind of worked out like pretty well, I think. Okay, so
hey, isn't that I think is that the same night that Scott did double duty and he did the IC match with Shane Douglas?
Oh man,
not sure on that one.
I think so.
Is that the one? I don't know.
But I don't think that's necessarily pertinent to the
to
the episode today.
All right, and now let's talk about your full-on heel turn when you were the special guest referee against for Razor Ramon versus Psycho Kid. I'm sorry, Psycho Sid. Sorry, I was reading two sentences at once. With Psycho Sid. So tell me a little bit about this, and you finally joined. It was a full circle, essentially. If you think about it in terms of, well, obviously you said this was part of the master plan where, you essentially turn heel, Razor Ramon turned.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I had some other little matches in there with Scott before I turned heel, where like.
Right.
Yeah, because you cost him the Intercontinental title. You hit him with a stroller. You hit him with a guitar.
That was after I turned.
Okay.
Before I actually technically turned, I had I had like one match with him at least.
Well, I remember there was that night on Raw.
And he fucking ran me through and beat me. Like
there was the night on Raw where he
put me in my place.
He kept beading you, and you kept demanding to start over. Yeah. But it looked like, after that, it looked like you guys kind of like made up and had sort of like put it behind you and then like kept going.
Mm-hmm. And then we get to me being the special referee with Sid and Scott, with Ted DiBiase at ringside. And I screwed Scott. And it was just a quick count, right?
Right.
And that was the part where... So Ted, his gimmick is he sticks $100 bills in their mouth, but we're in Canada, and so all he has was like a Canadian 5 or a Canadian 2 or some shit like that. And when he did it, I'm like, oh no. Like I didn't want anyone to see like Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man with. He shouldn't even have a $2 bill in his. Right. He shouldn't even know what one of those is. So I was like, I went and snatched it out of his mouth real quick. And it just looked like I was being greedy, right? Like a little shit thief. So, yeah.
I also like the promos between.
Sid. I fucking loved it.
Yeah?
Yes. And we were going to get the tag titles.
Really?
Yeah, and then something happened. Sid, he departed. And, but I really, like, if he's listening, I really love teaming what you said.
That's awesome.
Just really loved it. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I also wanted to point out, since we just kind of briefly touched base on this, but I really like the promos between Razor Ramon and Ted DiBiase, where he was trying to get him to hire him as his like servant or butler or something like that. I thought that was pretty hilarious, where he was kind of like, I really like that play on that. Okay, so where were we at? Okay, so you essentially during this match, you're the special guest referee. Tell us a little bit about how this all played out.
I just did.
Sorry, I'm already getting confused here. All right, let's move on then.
Well, who was it that first kind of approached you about turning? About like,
I don't remember.
Was there anything? Did they just think that you had just kind of like run your course as a face and they were trying something new?
Yeah. And I think that was. I think they were right.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if I wasn't going to go any further as a babyface around there at the time.
Yeah. So given your history with being a heel, you were obviously on board when they had approached you about it. Yeah. Nice.
Because it was just a way to be able to work with Scott, and we really wanted to work with each other because we had great chemistry, and people they liked it. They liked the whole storyline, and they weren't sick of it. It wasn't like it played its course or it was out of gas by any means.
Yeah, because by this point it had been 2 years.
It never ran out of gas. No, actually, they tried to move on to different things, and that really upset Scott. Actually, but we can get to that.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you mean by like this? That it upset him and all of that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, he just wanted to, have a conclusion to that, have that storyline with him and I play out and have a conclusion to blow off. And, they weren't really, they had different ideas.
I see.
So,
all right. So then we have this crybaby match where, the loser basically gets put in a diaper.
A little too far.
All right. So let's go back a little bit. You cost him the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, I caught, in his match with Goldust, when I came off the top rope and hit him with Scott with the spin kick. So that was what I meant by, Vince had this, big storyline with Goldust in mind and big plans, and Scott just didn't want to do it, and part of it was so, at the time, it was so controversial,
right.
and it was really uncomfortable for Scott, and he talks about it.
I see.
Right or wrong, or however you look at things, like at that time, and from Scott's life experiences, it was really uncomfortable for him, and so he didn't want to do it, and he wanted to work with his friend, right? And yeah.
How did that make you feel, like knowing that he was like, I want to continue this?
I felt good. I felt great, but I also saw that would have been a big thing too. Him and Goldust.
Right.
But you can't really, if someone's not, when someone's really dead set against doing something, man, it's really not a good idea to try to get them to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, like, sometimes, so the uncomfortableness, like, coming through, like, actually kind of does help the storyline.
It definitely helped, the Goldust character at the time, Because I remember, the storyline I with Ahmed Johnson, and you definitely got that for sure,
So, that whole Crybaby match, like, that was Scott's on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
Had he already given his notice at this point that he was going to leave?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we even had... So we had that Crybaby match, and, that was punishment for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also... And it wasn't good for me, character-wise. It was not good at all, but I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't good TV.
Sure.
It just wasn't good for me. But I did the best I could with it. And it was mainly because and anyone can deny this or say, oh, that's not why, but they wouldn't be being honest and that I was in the doghouse because I started this ball rolling with the whole jump to WCW thing.
I see.
Which I've already talked about that. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna dive into that right now, but so
So the second you heard that this match was happening, you knew you were going to be the one coming out in a diaper.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no, I didn't. I thought, okay, they're mad at Scott, when someone leaves, they do the job on the way out.
Right. Exactly.
And then when I get there, no. So even though Scott's leaving on bad terms, they're still fucking beating me and putting a bottle in my mouth and fucking a diaper on me.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you because obviously you don't want that to happen to you. Right. Obviously, you have different ideas for what you want to do with your character. How do you essentially swallow that pill and realize, okay, I have to do something that I'm not too big of a fan of that I have to do?
You just do it. What was I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in a good state of mind at the time, just overall. Like, my friends were leaving and I wasn't, and because I had wanted to leave, but my contract rolled over. And,
I see.
So I was stuck there. And, so there was a lot of things that were making me depressed and, unhappy. And, a lot of them were, my own doings, but, you don't see things that way at the time. But, no, up until I got there and Jim Cornette came up to me and told me how great this was for me. And I'm like, Jim, I'm going to do it, but don't fucking insult my intelligence by telling me how great this is for me, Like I said, though, but I will say it was entertaining and all that. Just I was damaged goods after.
I see.
After that,
I like all the post-match stuff. You have the powder in your face. You can't see. You don't realize you have this diaper on, and you're kind of just like, what? And at the end, you're like wanting to cry, and commentary's really putting over. Oh, that kid's crying. He's gonna cry. And
what else was I supposed to do with it, right? Like when they give you something, that's what I've talked about this on the show before. Like even if you don't. It's not your favorite thing because not everything is going to be exactly how you want it to be.
Right.
You got to do your best with it.
Yeah.
You got to put your best foot forward on this type of shit.
Jerry the King Lawler was really interesting in this match when he was calling commentary because he was saying some outrageous things. He was saying basically saying Razor Ramon was such an ugly baby that his mom breastfed him with a straw and just things like that were just so outrageous. But it was funny, when you're watching the match and you're seeing all of this put forward because that was really cool to sort of see it all in one. But okay, so then the end when you're doing it and then you slam the camera, that was hilarious. I mean, I thought it was funny.
Thank you.
Mm.
I did the best I could with it, and they played on that like weeks and weeks afterwards, until I wasn't around anymore. But
I see.
But so there was the last Europe tour before Keven and Scott left, and I'm pretty sure over there, I can't remember who exactly it was. I think it was Goldust that Scott was supposed to work with on the house shows, and for some reason. He couldn't make it, or like they had to replace him, and so they were putting Bradshaw, JBL,
Okay.
at the time, who was just like Justin Hawk Bradshaw. He wasn't even fucking APA or anything
Right,
yet,
yeah.
right?
He just had the big
He
bull
wasn't
rope.
even Blackjacks yet.
Right.
And people shit all over it. They were chanting 1, 2, 3 on all the house shows in Europe. So finally they were like, okay, and they let Scott have his mat because, so no, I want to work with Kid, you know? And that's what the people wanted. And sometimes it's a good idea to give the people what they want, especially on a fucking house show. So, yeah, that was how much the people like wanted that. They still wanted to see Scott and I.
Like, I know you said you didn't like the 1, 2, 3 Kid name. Did you think that maybe once you turned heel that maybe you should have had a name change?
No.
No?
No, I don't like a lot of name change. I mean, I've had them too many as it is,
And then was there ever, and I know we talked about this, but I forgot to ask you this, but was there ever a segment where you did show that you spent the money, the $10,000, that you guys just brushed through that?
No.
Never did anything with that?
No.
Because I was curious about that afterwards, and I watched that. I was like, you know what? That would have been interesting had we seen, or, what you did with the $10,000.
So what happened was, okay, when I came back through there was tons of cash in that bag, right? And there was Arnie Skoland, it was in charge of that, and I had to give it back to him, and he was like, there's like I forget what he said, there was like $2,000 missing or something. Like, I didn't put it over too much, but I was kind of worried that maybe he was not just ribbing me.
Right.
Because, I mean, that $2,000 at the time, holy shit. Man.
Yeah, right?
It's a week's pay. On a good week.
That's crazy. So those were some of the things that, we wanted to talk about here today. And I just think it was really cool. So, I forgot to mention something. So during your tag team match, this is just something that I noticed from watching the one with you and Razor versus the Smoking Guns.
Yeah.
When there was some parts where it seemed that you guys were going to win, the crowd was really excited about it and got like some huge pops.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, man, like you don't see that anymore nowadays where you get these pops. Like it was a tag team match. Like, like I don't know how to explain. It's just like everything overall. Like you just don't see that anymore.
There's part of the reason was they cared about us as a team, right? We had that history and everything, and so they were already emotionally invested in us. So just assuming you already have those ingredients, it's how you lay the match out and how you build the match,
Right.
and it's just and that hasn't changed. Like that hasn't changed. It hasn't gotten passed on to the newer generation like it should have been. Honestly, a lot of that blame I give to our generation for not, being there to pass it on to the younger guys. But yeah, no, that's what that is. That's just how we built it. How we built the match.
Yeah, because I was just seeing that, and I was like, man, I don't recall the last time I saw, something like this. If it wasn't like a big, like, oh my God, this is a big match on SummerSlam or Royal Rumble or whatever, WrestleMania, something like that. Just like, on Raw. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So just basically that's one of the things that I noticed, and I just thought it was really interesting to sort of see how the crowd was invested in certain storylines and certain characters and versus now, which was just interesting.
And so I would just remember also, I came in and I was out hurt for a while, and I was out here in LA rehabbing my injuries, and that's when I came back and cost Scott the IC title with Goldust. Yeah, I came in. I had a gold. Oh, I got heat because I snuck wearing a Gold's Gym ragtop sweatshirt onto the pay-per-view. Yeah, they weren't. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, but they were pissed.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember costing him the title. I remember hitting him with the spin kick off the top, and I don't remember what we did if we did anything after that. I think that might have been kind of the last anyone ever.
Yeah.
Saw of the Razor Ramon 1, 2, 3 Kid saga.
Right. So with that, you had mentioned kind of that depression of seeing your friends all leaving basically. Yeah. Did that make it that much of a relief when you jumped and joined the NWO?
Of course.
Were able to kind of reunite with them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I've told the story on how that went. I had an overdose at TV's after that Europe tour we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because I was up 21 days straight, pretty much.
Right.
Like, just partying, going crazy, and just burning the candle at both ends. I was just a tremendous case of like, melancholy combined with the like I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Like, so yeah, I talked about this. Vince put me in rehab, got me all ready to go, and then like let me go work for Vince or WCW if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. He's like, hey, if you want to go, if you got a better deal waiting for you there, I'll let you out. I'll give you a week to think about it. He flew me into Stanford to tell me that. And,
wow.
Yeah. And while I was in rehab, that first rehab, I was paid better than I was while I was out working on the road full time. Oh. And like, I think a huge part of that was, I didn't have to worry about anything while I was in rehab. Usually there's a lot of people when they're in rehab or situations like that, they're so distracted because their life is falling apart so bad on the outside that there's like, families are getting ready to be, they can't pay the bills, there's no food, or,
right.
They get ready to get kicked out because the rent's not paid. There's a lot of things. And I didn't have to worry about any of those things because of, Vince.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And part of, I say this, it was so nice of him to let me go in the middle of like that kind of heated war. But also part of that is like, he just didn't really think I was that big of a factor, if we're to be honest. Right?
I was going to ask you why you think he did that.
I just didn't think I was going to be a huge difference in the war. Sometimes people are wrong, even really smart people.
Yeah. You guys never talked about that afterwards later on in the future?
We didn't have to.
Right.
We didn't have to. When I came back and, everything happened the way it did when I came back, that was no need to have a conversation about it.
Sure.
There you go.
So not to get too big of a question, but what do you think it was about you and Scott that kind of drew you guys to each other that made you so close?
We are just, there's so many things about us that are similar, and just, we love this so much, just so much. And also I had already been under the Kurt Hadding, Mr. Perfect learning tree, and Scott and Sean, that, they had been there as well. And so like all this stuff, like the Click, DX, NWO, like all that, Kurt Hadding was such a huge part of that, just in his influence on everyone involved. Like Kurt was the guy that took all the guys under his wing, all the young guys, and and so Scott did the same thing, and so I tried to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I brought Kurt up, but I just
no, that's really interesting. I never knew that was kind of one of the common.
There were several common things that that binded us together, and that was one of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, we got messed up together, but that was like not the main thing at all. If it was, our relationship wouldn't be what it is to this day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for. This was fun.
Yeah, this is nice. Yeah.
Yeah. What time is it, Jeff?
Coming up on an hour, guys.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Oh my gosh.
It's a great show.
Yeah. Cool. I hope everyone enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the people I didn't mention earlier in the show, like I just figured we would do, change up the format a little bit, because there's a lot going on and a lot of news in the industry right now, and it's the greatest time, like maybe one of the greatest times ever. It's just I don't get the chance to see all of any of the shows anymore, and it's like I feel like I'm giving half-ass reviews of things, and when I read comments, and I do read comments, and even though some of them are shitty,
right?
Like still there's some real like solid feedback that you got to take, and part of it's like, hey man, I was waiting for you to talk about this part, and I don't want to give you guys half-ass reviews of things and that, and I just there's so much I have to talk about from the past that people seem to want to hear. So I just thought we would do this, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed doing this today. It was fun.
This was fun. I'm excited about this for sure.
Cool. So let's do the old, get the fuck out of here stuff.
All right. Well, before you guys go, as always, please do not forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Xpac. Check out the Twitter account, Xpac12360 Show, and then you can also check us out on Instagram. For me, you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ty Matthews PMA.
Yeah. At The Real X-Pac on Twitter, at Real X-Pac on Instagram, at It's Baby Lula, yada, yada, yada. See you right here next week from AfterBuzz TV Studios.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Sean Waltman, and the entire Xpac 12360 staff, thank you for tuning in to Xpac 12360.